All right. Well, good evening, everyone. This is John Craig.
And this is Sandi.
I'm glad you're here this evening, Miss Sandi.
Okay, guys, I was getting ready for the show. I've been working on putting my stuff together for hours, hadn't saved it. Yeah, I know. And then my computer locked up, and we were going to discuss the old gate and the Ephraim gate and Damascus gate and put some things in there like that. And my Word literally locked up. I couldn't do anything. It worked everything else, but not that. So finally, after about 30 minutes, the only thing I had to do was shut down. I lost everything. So John's stepping in because I was frustrated. Said, I'm not going to go back and do all that again.
So I'm flying in from out of town and trying to put something together. So I got some things I want to talk about this evening, though. And so just bear with us. And some of the things as a follow-up in regards to the meteors from, what was it, last week? 2 weeks?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, we were talking about the meteors, and we're talking about meteors and the meteor storms that are coming upon the earth. And people are like, is this a conspiracy theory? Is this, what's really up with the meteors? Well, I've been keeping an eye on it. I've been watching it, and it's something that it's on my radar. Test everything, go out, research it for yourself, go to the American Meteor Society, look at the charts, look at how there's been an increase of meteor, what they call fireballs coming through the atmosphere, and the counts are way up, and they're even up. This last month, we were over.
I think we talked about that.
1,400 in the month of March, over 1,400. Maybe pushing 1,500.
So 1,400 meteors fell to the earth in March.
Well, we're seeing they may have burned up. Most of them burned up in the atmosphere.
Okay.
That we do know that one hit India. Now, so I got some more information from this last week, and that has to do with that there's definitely meteor storms coming. And we say meteor showers or meteor storms. And that's really kind of the difference. And according to Mike from around the world, he's saying that it will become our vernacular to call them meteor storms. I've said this before. I'm just repeating it for if you haven't heard me talk about it, just saying again. So, of course, anything that has to do with meteors right now, my radar is up. Of course, everything that has to do with the things that are going on the earth right now, my radar is up because I'm trying to figure some things out. If the meteor storms are going to be as bad as they're supposed to be, then it would really make sense why in the month of April that President Trump would say, hey, we need to have a lockdown until April 30th. Well, because why if there's only, like in Amarillo, Texas, maybe a half a dozen people that have been diagnosed with
I think we're up to 11, but most of them are at home and are fine.
And I think there was one hospitalized here. And in fact, I had one person in our congregation, he went down to the two major hospitals that we have here in town. He went to the emergency room and was looking around to see where all these coronavirus victims are. And in the waiting room or anything like that, there's nobody there.
The rooms are empty.
But
that report is not only local in Amarillo. There are reports of that in Hawaii and New York. And I guarantee if they're all over there, it's all over. The hype that the places are full and things is just hype. And my niece, who is frontline ER dealing with the coronavirus. Registered nurse. Her husband's a police officer. She said they are dealing with things, but and she said, when you're dealing with it, it doesn't affect you, but there's a few and it affects you. You're fine 1 minute and 30 minutes later you're on a vent. But even the numbers there are small, like just a few. And so these numbers are being skewed, lied about, et cetera, et cetera. Not saying there aren't people that are dealing with something. There is.
Yeah.
And then the deaths, you told me about the deaths as well, that people are dying and they're just going to go ahead and mark it as death by coronavirus, no matter what the cause is.
Right. Stanford University has actually found that they're playing with the numbers and that there are people that do not have coronavirus that are dying, and they're dying of other causes, but they're putting on the death certificates coronavirus. So we've got all sorts of manipulation of numbers, and it makes you think, okay, there's another agenda at play, something to hype up the whole coronavirus, Chinese virus deal. It seems like there's multiple reasons for doing that there. And honestly, I was responding to somebody on a message today, I think there's parallel reasons for it. And each one has a valid reason and has, when you work it out logistically or logically, it looks like, that could make sense. So, and one of the things, as Joe just put here in the chat room, and I agree with her, is that ABC's back at it again. ABC actually put on their newscast saying that the hospitals were in chaos because they have all these coronavirus victims going on. And
such a lie.
It is a lie. And InfoWars actually went and investigated those videos, found out that those videos were from Skynet or Skywatch or something like that. It's a European news agency. Found out that those are videos taken from an Italian hospital. So what are they trying to manipulate? What are they trying to do? And, and honestly, how bad is this really?
But I think where we should be looking is, since this is over here focused on the coronavirus,
okay,
we
Joe
shouldn't
says,
even be looking at that. We should be looking over here and over there to see what the real thing is.
Right. Joe said it was CBS.
Oh,
so
CBS.
Yeah, ABC got caught earlier this year talking about a bombing. They said, look at this, President Trump went in and bombed the city in Syria, and I see these great big explosions they caught on video, and they found out that it was an annual event in Kentucky where they blow off tannerite, and then they call that Syria. I mean, we don't know what's being shown by mainstream media to be true or not.
Not only that, with the media, I was watching something today, and it was showing one of the generals, a Hispanic general, and from December, and it was showing that I guess they have the technology now that it's a robotic technology that's hooked to the face, making it sound like they're saying something and they're not even saying those things. And you could tell by the video that the only part was moving is right here and some different things. So even when you do look at the news and you think there's an actual testimonial, you can't trust that it's an actual testimony. If you'll say, well, how can they do that? Well, folks, have you looked at the magazine covers? Really? Yeah. You can Photoshop, you can airbrush.
Well,
do you think
digital
AI technology can go ahead and make you seem like you're saying something and you're not even saying those things?
Yeah, digital technology can just take your picture, because it's all digital when you go run it through a camera, and make it do things what is not happening.
So what's over here?
So
and what's over there?
Yeah. What's exactly? We've got all these different things. So here's some things and some thoughts that we have about it. One of the parallels that could be, and some of the followers of Q out there are promoting this, and I watch Q, and I've been watching. It's like, okay, is something really going to happen? Come on, if something's really going to happen, then show me, show me
the money.
Show me the money. Okay. So one of the parallels is that that the deep state and the swamp is so deep, and it's so messy, and it's so convoluted that they have to drum up this big old ordeal to lock everybody down in society and around the world, so that everybody's locked in place, and then come up with what's called 10 days of silence. And where
10 days of darkness.
10 days of darkness. And that's where they cut everybody off of the internet and cell phones, and there's no communication while all of this is going on. And in the process, during that time in the darkness, so to speak, they're rounding up all of these criminals and this corrupt elite that are around the world, and those have been involved in child trafficking. Those have been involved in so many other issues that have caused.
I really don't think that's it, though.
Such debauchery in our country.
Be, but not shut us down for it, because that would destroy any vestige of business that was left. To shut down the internet would remove everything else. So not only do you have so many businesses shut down, but it would remove everything else from society. They do need to do that, but they don't need to shut us completely down.
And they're saying, well, maybe it won't be 10 days of darkness. It'll be 3 days of darkness. Nevertheless, I'm okay with.
No, you're not. You can work.
But here's the thing. I can't work. Everything I do, I have to have a connection to the internet. Even my phone, my work phone, is connected to the internet. So, and to my computer. So I need that just to be able to work. So, nevertheless, we have that. That's one side of the discussion. That's one distraction that's going on.
That's actually
if
true.
it were to be true, I really hope that in the midst of all this, President Trump is actually saying, "Hey, we're going to round up these criminals, and we're waiting on John Durham to start issuing the indictments. It's supposed to happen in March. Well, this is March.
You've been telling me it's back before then, and then I'll believe it when I see it.
So that's what we've been looking for, and that's what was promised. Actually, it was promised by Attorney General Bob Barr that by March that Durham would start issuing indictments. Well, I haven't seen anything. Nothing's hit the news at this point in time, so we're waiting.
Do you think anything's going to be on the news? I mean, look what we're doing. We're doing News Today on it too. We're just as bad.
We're waiting. We're just continuing to wait. Of course, then the other parallel is okay, do we need to shut down society because of what's coming upon the earth? And of course, anybody that's been talking about meteors now is labeled a conspiracy theorist. So we've been talking about meteors. So
you're a conspiracy
I guess
theorist.
I'm a conspiracy theorist. But I tell you what.
According to their label.
According to their label. Now, of course, we got two different sources, Stephen Ben Benoon and Mike from around the world over on the
Stephen Ben Benoon?
Stephen Ben Benoon. Stephen Benoon. There you go. So he was actually talking about this, and we talked about that in a prior broadcast. But we keep getting the confirmations, even this on Thursday, talking about the meteor showers. And now Mike from around the world actually said that April 29th may be a very interesting day. We need to be keeping our eye out on. So I say, well, what is April 29th and why is that important? Well, NASA is tracking a meteor that is about 55 to 60 meters in width, that is in a trajectory towards the Earth. This is one, it's had a flyby before. It's had a history coming by the Earth, near Earth misses. And they're saying that this one should be a near Earth miss as well. And it'll skim across our top of our atmosphere and it'll miss the Earth. Now that's their projection, because anything can happen when you've got meteors out there. There are different forces that act upon meteors, and they can change directions. And so we don't know. We don't know for sure what's happening, but on April 29th, there's going to be a flyby. Well, whenever I think about a flyby of a meteor, I'm also thinking about, well, what else is coming with that meteor? How much is in that grouping of meteors? And maybe one will fly by and maybe some others will actually enter the atmosphere. We don't know. We're just paying attention to it. Now, here's something else, some dates to keep in mind. April 16th through the 25th, we will be passing through an area where it's an annual, I believe it's an annual event where there is a meteor shower watch, and it's supposed to peak somewhere in the middle of from the 16th to the 25th, somewhere in the middle of it, it'll peak, and they should see, multiple meteor fireballs, coming across the sky, and we should be able to see that. So it's going to be an interesting month, and also very interesting if some of those are large enough that would actually have impact with the Earth. So we're keeping an eye on that. Now, here's something else that's very interesting. This happened on this last Shabbat over in Nigeria. Now, Stephen Benoon actually came out with a report, very brief, said, hey, there was a meteor that struck Nigeria. So I hadn't had an opportunity to look at it. I had a friend of ours call who checked on,
who has a
connection over in Africa, who said, okay, what's the deal with this? Is there any legitimacy to it? And the friend over there says, no, there's
the report is that it's a bomb,
political unrest over there, and looks like it could very well have been a bomb. Now, I went and actually looked it up and found some very interesting articles. Not a bomb.
Is that a picture?
That's a picture now in color.
That doesn't look like a bomb.
But the official report from the governor, because over at Akura, Nigeria, and in Osun, Nigeria, I guess the governor of that state within Nigeria.
And you can go to strange.
Yeah, this was over at strangesounds.org. And so I'm going to hold up a picture to show you that it's really there's a.
You can't tell.
Yeah, can you tell? It's kind of hard to tell from that, but it's because this is black and white. That's actually pictures in.
It doesn't look like a bomb.
It doesn't look like a bomb. I mean, it's a huge crater.
Looks like what you see on TV when an asteroid or meteor hits. It looks like that.
I mean, it actually is. It actually looks like that. So what this governor, the Ondo State Governor, Rotimi Akerdolu, said that the explosion was an accident. So
that's another story.
Yeah, so he's talking about this, and this is what I think what the contact over in Africa was talking about, because the governor's official story was that a fire broke out in a vehicle within a convoy transporting explosives to a storage facility in a neighboring state, which caused the explosion. And so that's the official story. Well, apparently now that some time has passed, I went and found some other information saying that the governor is actually backtracking on that, because there was an official investigation by a professor, and it was an expert of teams led by
Adepelumi
Adekunle, a professor of geophysics and earthquakes engineering at Obafemi Awolowo University.
He said it was a meteor.
Yeah, he said that.
So that's
this
confirming
was,
that.
and he confirmed that the impact was at an angle of 43 degrees. So considering if you've got 90 degrees here
and 45,
45, so it's coming in at an angle like that, and that was the angle of the impact. And there were foreign and strange metallic objects found within the crater.
No evidence of vehicles.
Yeah, there was no evidence of a vehicle. You'd think that truck,
special metals.
There would be body parts, and there would be anyway.
So what we have here is exactly what I said when I had heard, is that the story that it was a bomb or something was a cover up because they don't want people to know it was a meteor.
Yes.
And now that's confirmed, which we need to tell our source.
Yeah, that
it is a true story, so he can tell his source.
And I found multiple articles about that. And these were local Nigerian articles that were actually talking about it. They got pictures out there on the internet.
First-hand knowledge instead of spread through gossip.
Yeah, so that was an actual meteor strike. And what happened is
it's a big crater, guys.
They said 50 to 100 buildings were damaged or destroyed in the impact.
Now, imagine if we're in a meteor storm. Remember the prediction of what Stephen Ben Noon's government source said, is that much of the U.S. would be destroyed, and Europe and things like that. Well, if there's a storm where you have many of those coming in.
Yeah. So that's why when we reference back to Luke chapter 21, it says men's hearts failing them for things that are coming upon the earth. Everybody was asleep in this village. This happened at night. So, people were sleeping, and then there's an explosion. And I was looking to see if anybody might have seen the flash, and I looked over there at the American Meteor Society to see if maybe there was a report there and I didn't see a report. So I guess no one saw the visual of the meteor coming through, but the evidence of the impact shows.
Well, and then you have an expert saying this is a meteor strike.
Yes, as opposed to, because the other thing, when you have an explosion, then you would have evidence of fire and burned objects, and there was none of that. There was no burned objects.
A big crater with mysterious metals.
Yeah. So those are, again, why are we talking about this? Because we're just keeping our eyes open to the things that are being talked about that may be on our way. Now, like I said before, Mike from Around the World, I've been following him for the last 5, 6, 7 years, and everything that he's been talking about has been coming true. So
his track record for you personally is 100%.
He's got a wonderful track record. I mean, he's very good. Wonderful in terms of he's telling us what's coming, and a lot of it's very cryptic. But as the days get closer to the time, then he becomes more specific, and that's what's happening now. He's becoming more specific. Now let's add to that story, and it has to do with April 29th. So this meteor shower in the mid to latter part of April that's coming. In somewhere around the 25th, 26th of April. And yet this big meteor that they're tracking is supposed to be coming on April 29th. Now, Mike from Around the World said, watch April 29th and May the 12th. So if these things are coming, April 30th, the lockdown that's supposed to end on April 30th may be extended. So just keep your eyes open for this. I know, of course, the Democrats have said, the leftists have said, never let a good crisis go to waste. So they're certainly taking advantage of this
Of
crisis.
this made up crisis.
Yeah.
I like it that somebody sent us a video at Life of Worship where a gentleman, you watched it. Have you watched it yet?
I may or may not have.
Where the gentleman actually looked up the patent for coronavirus, which was obtained by the U.S. in 2006. And then somebody else obtained the patent for the virus in 2014. Hello, people.
Yeah. And that was actually during the Obama administration. That coronavirus that was developed in a lab in North Carolina was then purchased by China under the Obama administration. And this is from a bio lab. It's a level 4 bio lab.
So it's weaponized.
So it's weaponized. And it was sent to Wuhan. And of course, I believe it was a Harvard professor that has connections with Wuhan was recently arrested. And they've have connections with students that have been studying here in the United States and learn how to splice these viruses together and to change them up. Well, that's what they were doing in Wuhan, and that's where they literally welded in the gain of function that's of the HIV. So, nevertheless, we can look at all this. The thing about bioweapons is that there's always the blowback, and we've seen that. We don't know what the true numbers are in China, and everybody's saying praising China.
We don't know what the true numbers are here. Are you kidding?
Well, and in China, we don't know the true numbers. They're praising China for what they've done, and they don't even know what they've done.
China,
because it's communist. If you were raised in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s during the former Soviet Union, you understand what propaganda is. I lived in Norway. We were pretty close. We actually touched Russia, the Soviet Union at the time. I would get the Pravda, the English version of the Pravda, every once in a while, just to see what the Russians were saying about the news in the world. And oh my goodness, the propaganda that came out of Russia. Do we want to believe anything that comes out of China, especially in an asymmetrical warfare time, that it seems like there is a play, and it's initiated by China because we had China back up against the wall, President Trump in the trade deals and all that type of thing. So could this be asymmetrical warfare, and we're trying to get on top of it, and that's why we're locked down? There's all sorts of theories. Many of them may even be parallel, or one is being used by another in order to control the economy. Or to control our nation and the people of this nation. Of course, I actually got a deal from John Cornyn today, one of our senators in the state of Texas. And you know what I told him? I told him that we need to send people back to work. We're in America. We are Americans. We'll figure out how to deal with it. But Americans should not be deprived of the right to work. And yes, there's going to be fallout. Yes, we know that there's issues that come with the coronavirus, but let us exercise caution and wisdom, and don't keep us from working.
But here's the issue. You have places like Israel. I don't know if you listened a couple weeks ago with Nehemiah Gordon's sister, and she said the way that, oh my goodness, what are the Asian countries that dealt with it? Not China.
You got South Korea.
South Korea. There's another one.
Anyway,
the way they dealt with this successfully was that they tracked people's phones, and that's how they dealt with it successfully, because if X got it, they could look at the phone and see who they were in the vicinity with, and call them all and say, you need to quarantine yourself because you were in the vicinity. And she was criticizing the U.S. because she said the U.S. would never do that. I think they probably already do, but officially, no, we shouldn't. That shouldn't happen. And so you have countries like Israel and other places, I guarantee, because anybody wants to criticize the U.S., they always do. But that would like to be a part of the play to remove our rights, because she was like, well, Nehemiah, you need to go back to Israel because the U.S. will never do this, so it's going to be this bad. And the 2 million projected deaths, which there may be 2 million deaths, but we've already evidenced that it's not all good. It may be labeled coronavirus, but it's not going to be.
Okay. And that leads us to a couple different things I want to bring out. And Terry here in the chat room says, according to Johns Hopkins Hospital Resource Center tracking the Chinese coronavirus, China only has 82,278, and the USA has 174,467. But do we trust anything that
No.
China says?
Do I trust anything the U.S. says? No.
And the reason that our numbers are going up is because
We're actually testing.
We're actually testing. And so
they had, I saw
difference.
something that they had a military person, and I don't know what the angle was on the story, but it said that there were the National Guard or military people that were doing the testing, and they said it's just the flu. And I don't know what angle the story was going to lean from that, but
yeah. So we have this whole issue of the biometrics, the tracking, and all connected to our cell phones, and most people today have smartphones, and the smartphones, whether you have you
need to learn to leave them at home,
whether you have the location turned on or not, it's still tracking you.
That's right.
And so that's how they're tracking people. That's how they're tracking in these Asian countries.
And in Israel says we are doing it. That's why we're going to be a much better off.
So they can target those phones, and then they can send you a text message that you were in the area of somebody that has coronavirus. You need a quarantine for 14 days. And so guess what? We got so used to using our digital phones that in fact, I have to use it. I have to use it for work. So I have to carry it wherever I go, whether I'm in the panhandle of Texas or New Mexico, Oklahoma, to Kansas. I have it with me. They know where I'm at. They can track me down. And so unless you put it in one of those little Mylar pouches and you can shut it off. But then if you got to pull it out and turn it on, they're going to find you again. So there you go.
Do it like me. I just leave it at home.
Leave it at home.
If you try to call me, folks, a lot of times my phone is not on me. So
this really takes us to another place and another issue of it's two parts. I want to bring up this other one first. And this has to do with what the Deagle report has said. Now, if anybody knows anything about the Deagle report, going all the way back to, I think it was 2013, 2014, maybe 2015, somewhere along there, the report came out that by 2025, the population of the United States would be reduced by 90%.
Which would be what?
Which would be from 350 million people. It'd probably take us down to, I would have to calculate it, but by 90% of that, someone calculate it, you can figure it out. But that is a significant drop, maybe 50 or 60 million. That's a significant drop in the population in the United States. And looking at population counts around the world, it also tells you about, and they do this because it's about economic planning, it's about military planning, budgets, all that type of thing. And this is what industry uses. This is what the military industrial congressional conglomeration looks at in terms of planning budgets, planning how much taxes may be coming in, and they would not back off of that. Now, of course, in those numbers, they also not one congressperson or one senator ever came out to challenge those numbers as to why. My question is, why? Why would they not challenge those numbers? Well, recently they updated the numbers, and it's not a 90% decrease. It might have been 26 million. Did you figure it out yet?
I wasn't even doing only that. So.
Okay. All right. So it may have reduced it all the way down to about 25, 26 million in the United States left by 2025. It's like, what type of event would take place that wipe out that many people? And because that is really a very significant, and why in the United States and why not anywhere else? In other words, is the United States going to come under attack? Are we going to be faced with something that is going to be epidemic, or is it going to be something that is extra celestial, shall we say, that would affect the earth? Some type of targeting upon the United States.
If you have 350 million, it's going to take out, according to that, what their agenda was. If their agenda, what they've written all those years ago, would be true, it would take out about 315 million of the 350 million,
leaving you with
about 35 million people. That what you said earlier.
Yeah. Now, those numbers have been revised, by the way. Now, the Deagle report saying that the population of the earth or of the United States is not going to be affected as much as that, but it's still listing about, I think it was 140 million, 150 million people, or a million of our population decrease by the year 2025. Still a significant number. So again, no congressperson, no senator has come out to question those numbers or to bring it to the public to say why, what information are you using in order to say, hey, in the next 5 years, we're going to see a major population decrease. So think about this, the election, if we have the elections in November 2020, then that during the time of the next presidential term, we will see an impact to the population of America. What will happen to this country? And this is not to cause fear. This is not to say, I'm just saying these are their numbers. So my question is, why? Why? What could be affecting us? What's going on? And so I'm looking at the coronavirus and I'm looking at the impact of the world and looking at who's affected and the demographics of who's affected. And we're seeing a couple different things. We're seeing that it actually affects men more than women. It affects more Asians than any other race. There are particular races that seem to do very well. And that's like, for example, Africans, Blacks are able to stand up and have a better resistance to it. And it all has to do with the number of receptors within the lungs for this virus. We also know that blood type A is affected more than any other blood types. But when the coronavirus hits a person, is that it has side effects. And there might be round 1 and there might be a round 2 and round 3 with it. And round 1 may affect the lungs, which that you can recover from. But if you're a male, round 2 may affect the testicles, and another round may affect the heart. And so you think about what is the globalist plan of the UN 2030. We won't
be having children.
UN 2030. What do the Georgia Guidestones say? A reduction of the world's population to 500 million. And if it's targeted towards male, of course, one of the things that they targeted towards females in the last 10 years was the notorious Gardasil. And what did it do? It fried the ovaries of teenage girls and reducing their fertility. And they also, whenever young men were told to take the Gardasil shot, and some parents took their kids out there to get that Gardasil shot, what did it do?
We know many that
it fried their male reproductive parts. So now we've got this coronavirus that has this gain of function that's related to it, that is actually causing literally a laceration within those male genital parts and killing their reproductive ability. So look at maybe another agenda that's going on, and we need to pay very, very close attention to that. That's why we need to build up our immune systems. We need to use natural means of protection, nutraceuticals, to protect ourselves, and research that out as what's going to be best for you. So this takes us to the next step, and this really kind of takes...
Is this news story something else?
Yeah, this is a news story.
In case Mark breaks it up, then...
This is where it relates, and actually I got this first article from Mark David Smith on an email that he sent out earlier this week, and it talks about Bill Gates will use microchip implants to fight coronavirus. Well, what's that about? Well, President Trump actually talked about in one of his recent speeches saying, hey, it looks like we have a vaccination that's in the works, and it's under testing right now. And in this testing, we're maybe 6 months out and a vaccine may be ready for the population. Well, that's really interesting. Of course, in the midst of the hype, what do people in the midst of hype do? They get fearful. And what do most people, because of hype, because of measles? I mean, we've been prepped for this. The flu, swine flu, bird flu, H1N1, all these different things. And what do they say? Go out there and get your immunizations, get your vaccines. Well, now Bill Gates has come out and said, hey, we have a solution for it. And of course,
let's chip you.
Yeah, let's do a chip. And what Microsoft, in relation to MIT and Rice University, they've actually come up with a chip, a very interesting chip that is related to, and it's an implant to the to your where they're talking about putting in your forearm, and it's basically an injection like a tattoo, where they take these nanoparticles and that have the vaccination, and they embed it into the skin. And once those nanoparticles go in there, of course, the injection goes into your skin, the vaccination is taken, and then it also reads, and you can read it, and we'll have a marker in there that they can scan and say, oh, you've got the vaccination. And you can't get rid of this tattoo, but you can add things to it. It is a digital memory. It is a digital ID. And so that which you were carrying around with you on your phone now goes into your arm, and they can actually track you with this digital ID because it's an RFID type of, I won't say a chip, because it is more like the particles, nanoparticles that have become part of your body, and they become right there in your system, and you can't get rid of it. You can't take it out. And by the way, what do we follow within Scripture? It says, do not tattoo yourself. We're not to tattoo. We are not to mark ourselves, because why? Because that's what the pagans do. It's all about who you worship. They would mark their bodies in the mourning of the dead. They would mark their bodies in worship of pagan gods, and we're not to be and do the things that the pagan nations do. So when they say, hey, we want to give you this solution, well, of course we're going to say no, because we're not going to take any type of mark upon our body. But here's the other connection. It's going to be related to buying and selling. So every day we're going to scan our chip that's going to tell the authorities that, hey, we're good. We've got a current license to intermingle with culture. You can go to the store today. Or let's say you go to the store and they'll just scan you on the way in, and it may not even be a person scanning it. It's just one of those overhead beams that you walk through, and it'll say, hey, all right, you're okay, or no. We've been accustomed to this, because when we exit doors with one of these RFID chips that are on our products that have not been disabled, you walk through the door, and what happens? The alarms go off. When you're exiting, well, the alarms will go off when we enter the store if we don't have an RFID type of tattoo saying, hey, we're clean. It's okay for us to come into the store. My question is if someone's been vaccinated, then no one else should fear the unvaccinated. But of course, that's not sound logic in their world. This is one of those things, and the mark is going to be tied to our bank accounts. It's going to be, and especially in the midst of all this, the fact that the advent of digital money, and that's really been talked about now, because no one wants to use money, because money carries on its surface germs, viruses. And one of the things they've emphasized in the news about how long these germs stay on surfaces. Have you been programmed that way yet? Are you paying attention of why they keep emphasizing how long these things stay on the surface? Well, think about why they're telling us this, because nobody is going to want to touch money anymore. So why not just remove it from society?
Give it to me.
Right. So here we are with a pre-programming, a preparation for people to go into digital money. Of course, if you have digital money, then your bank account can be turned off until you get the proper vaccination, until you become part of the society again and follow the cultural rules. And part of the cultural rules will be you need to play by the rules. And that's, again, it ties to social scores, social credit system. And this is what they've been experimenting with over in where? China. So this is some of the things that we need to be looking at. These are the things that are coming upon the world. And of course, you know who's advocating for this microchip implant to fight coronavirus? Bill Gates. Yes, billionaire philanthropist Bill Gates. And why? Because he's the one that actually was part of the gaming or the war gaming of last fall's coronavirus mock-up. Yeah. Well, isn't it convenient as they war gamed it that he's also in the process of developing and sponsoring the development of the chip? Of course, he's going to make a lot of money off of it because he's sponsoring it. He's going to get his share out of it, but it's also about what? Control. And this is what I am really concerned about when we talk about all these different things. We're talking big picture, putting it together. It's about control. I often wonder when Q is talking about the white hats and the black hats, that the white hats are the saviors of the world. Well, what else does the scripture tell us about another Messiah? The build up to the anti-Messiah to bring about the solving of these type of problems that are in the earth today. These things that actually countries go to war about. And in the midst and the hype and the escalation of terms, of course, China is now blaming the United States for their coronavirus. Why? Because it's rhetoric. You cannot believe anything a communist says. Why let a good crisis go to waste? And of course, the leftists in our nation are in lockstep. They are in lockstep. Why? Because they're communists and they are following along the agenda of the Chinese. Why? Because this is part of the Hegelian dialectic. When you have a problem and a solution and bring in these things, you got an issue. What do? You say we got a problem. Well, we have a solution already made. They make the problem and then they bring their solution in. That's how they kick the can down the road. So these are different things that we're looking at. And of course, Joe, you're right. What about all of these elites? You know, I have the question, why are all the elites fleeing to New Zealand, to their underground bunkers in New Zealand? Because what is coming to the Northern Hemisphere? That is another question. See how all of these things are interlaced? They're all brought together to a certain point in time and a certain point of crises within our nation when people are going to be crying out for a savior. Well, this is where we are keeping our eyes open and say, look, things are coming. We cannot bow to a new world order. Digital cash, digital identities, digital, they have ID 2020 is what it's called. In fact, they've been talking about it for years. Last fall was a big deal where they were saying, yes, in 2020, they're going to start rolling out digital IDs. Digital IDs. You won't be able to travel. You won't be able to get on an airplane. You won't be able to cross state lines. You won't be able to shop. You won't be able to do these things. You won't be able to engage in culture because you'll be a cast out. You will be no longer invited to participate. And this is what the Bible's been talking to us about. This is what's coming. And these are some things that we need to be looking at. So why are we talking about it? Because people, these are the signs. These are the signs of the coming of Yeshua, and we are watching it happen right before our very eyes. So I wanted to bring these things to our attention today. There are so many articles. I have 3 printed right here that was just full of information that is like, wow. And we were talking about it. And now here we are. We've been talking about it for years, and yet this is 2020. These things are all on purpose. There is a plan in place, and no matter what side of the bird we're on, left wing, right wing, it seems like the bird is going in one direction, and that's leading to a one world government. It's leading to a digital economy, a digital money system. I mean, let me ask you another question. Why would President Trump authorize the Federal Reserve to print trillions. $2 trillion in the stimulus package. They're talking up to the Federal Reserve, $12 trillion. Why are they doing that? Well, whenever you print that much money, what does the value of that money do? It drops. The value of the American dollar has been what all of the world currencies have been based off of. If you devalue the American dollar, it becomes in par with all of the other world currencies. So it's easier to have a digital one world currency. Of course, some have talked about it's the ability to get off of the U.S. Federal Reserve dollars and move to a gold standard. I hope that might be the very case, but I'm watching. And I'm watching to see what happens. So I hope you are too. We're going to continue watching these things. This has been a news broadcast here on Walking in Spirit and Truth. I hope you feel informed about it. This is not to cause fear. It's not to cause trepidation. It's not to cause anxiety. This is to say the Messiah is coming. Yeshua HaMashiach, he is coming. And this is why we must be ready. Now, I want to talk about preparation. What if you're not able to engage in commerce? Because in 6 months, you're going to have some type of RFID digital, whether it's on your phone, whether it's implanted on you. You've been prepped for it. You can't have it unless you get the pass. And what if you can't buy or sell without it? What are you going to do? Then prepare. You prepare now. Now, one of the things I've been talking about is, and we've talked about it before, is storable food. If you have storable food, then extends your ability. Grow a backyard garden if you can. Grow things like potatoes. Potatoes, you plant some potatoes, you can get a year's supply of food by just simply growing potatoes. You grow sprouts for your vitamins. You do things like that to prepare. And one of the things that you do is right now, I've been told that My Patriot Supply is back online and they are filling orders again. You can get My Patriot Supply through InfoWars store. And the reason I bring that up, I don't get anything out of it, is that you get a 40% discount. That's really good savings. If you're on a budget, I know the Common Sense Show, you can go there and you can get it that way with Prepare with Dave. And there is a savings there, and you can buy it in increments of even just a 2-week supply, which will save you money. Just buy it 2 weeks at a time, depending on how your paycheck's coming in, and be able to build up your supply. These are some things that you can do for you and your family, besides the things that you can do as stock is replenishing. There is some stock that's replenishing within the stores, and they do have limits that they're putting on people. But if you can buy 2 cans, you put 1 can away of food. Yes, Joe, dried lentils, they will go a long ways. Dried beans, dried other type of things. Just remember, food fatigue needs to be considered. So make sure you buy things to go with it. You can change up the flavors, change up the texture, because food fatigue is very real. And you're going to like, oh, 1 more day of beans. Well, mix it up. Have some things. That's why storable foods are good, because you can prepare different types of meals that'll help you along with that. So all of these different things are just ideas. You look them up. There's been so much research on it. But here, when we've been talking about the day and the hour that we're living in, these days are drawing closer and closer, and it seems like they're drawing at a more rapid pace. So if you found this show interesting tonight, give us a thumbs up. We certainly appreciate that. Share it on your social media. Let people know some of these things that we are looking at, paying attention. Of course, don't just take what I say. Research it yourself. Look at the information that's out there and determine. Of course, we are Sandi and I pastor Life of Worship here in Amarillo, Texas. We would love for you to join us. And we are actually doing our Torah portion on Zoom.
And our Torah Talk.
And our Torah Talk, which is a Monday night Bible study. And
you want to
join us. Yeah, email us. You need to email us. I've not put that up on on a banner yet. Let me put that up there.
Just tell 'em 'cause it's gonna
And so that is LOW. Here, I'm going to put our ticker. Where's our ticker? Right there. LOW at lifeofworshipamarillo.org. Email us. We will put you on our email list for the Zoom because it is by invitation only. But it worked out really well. We did it for the first time on Monday evening for our Torah talk. So join us on Zoom and for our Torah study, and also for our services. We will continue broadcasting that on YouTube Live, and that is at Life of Worship Amarillo. Just type that in, Life of Worship Amarillo. You'll be able to find that. Save it, make it a favorite. So when it's time to do the broadcast, you can go there very quickly. 2:00 for Torah portion on Shabbat, and that's Central Time, and then 5 p.m. for our message, for our service. So that will be Shabbat. Anyway, those are some things that are going on. If you all like what we've been talking about and some of the things we've been going through, and that is, and you'd like to partner with us, you can go to our website there at lifeofworshipamarillo.org. Click the donate button to be a financial supporter. And then also you can email us and say, I'm not able to give at this point in time, but I will pray for you and I'll be part of your prayer team. And we would certainly appreciate that as well. So all of those things are said. I, again, say thank you. Thank you for joining us, being part of this broadcast today. And so on behalf of Walking in Spirit of Truth here on the Messianic Lamb Network, shalom.